Research is an important step within your project. Sometimes the best way to get research is to ask people questions. You would do that using a survey. This means that you can ask a number of people questions about your product or what their intentions are with your product or the way that they would use it. Sometimes it's a good way to get information from a large number of people. If you wanted to get information from a smaller number of people, but much more detailed information, then you would be asking things like an interview. So say, for example, you might want to have an interview with a person that knows a lot about your product or has specific requirements in your product. Particularly if your product was focused, say, at a business, you would have to have the CEO of the business having his input in a detailed way. And you have to document that. The way that you document that is through some written tasks. So you're going to write a survey and then you're going to actually analyze the results. It's much easier to analyze the results if you have a decent looking survey. This is an example of a survey that was taken a few years ago about the Year 9 laptop program. So students were given a full day in order to do some stuff around the laptops, and we wanted to get some feedback on how effective that was. So we've asked here a range of strongly agree to strongly disagree questions, and the advantage of that is that you have a measured response. So you can say that 90% of students strongly agreed that they really enjoyed the day, which means that it was very effective. If you ask people to just write in what they thought of the day, you'll find that you have a range of responses that's really difficult to analyse because you have to read every single response. So this is a way of taking measured responses that can be analysed quantitatively. Sometimes you need to get more information, however, and you'll notice question 2 is a response box where people can type in a response. That means that you have to go through and read those, which is okay if you're only asking 5 or 10 people, but most professional surveys ask thousands of people what their responses are. So that obviously then becomes a little unwieldy in terms of analysing it. But if you want to get more detailed responses from people, then that can be a good way to do it. Now you'll notice that there's no area here for the student's name or age or anything like that. The reason is each one of these questions is particularly focused around a piece of information that's required from the survey. This is really important because you don't want to be wasting your time asking questions that don't really need to be asked. So, what structure should your analysis follow? For each question within your survey, you'll need to follow a particular process. So the first questions that you're going to answer within your response is, what were the participants asked? So what question was asked? So this bit here, what within question 1 of the survey, participants were asked this question. The next part is to show why that question was important, because every single question within your survey should have a reason for existing. So if you have, for example, the name, sometimes that's not really an effective reason for existing, and this is a good way to tell whether you can actually take that question out altogether. One of the things that people do mostly wrong in surveys is to ask way too many questions. People get bored and then they don't take the survey. So the focus of this question was in order to determine something, something, something. So this is the focus, the reason that that question exists. Now, an important thing is what the results were. So the results of this survey found that, now you might want to use here percentages. So you can say 90% of people found this. One of the focuses of InTech is for you to communicate graphically. So maybe you can put a graph in. So within Excel, you could create a graph that showed that a certain percentage of people liked your product or liked your product idea. So you might want to say here See graph number 1. Okay. Now, the number one most important thing that people need to do in their research that rarely gets done is to show your impact on the project. So this whole section here, and you'll notice that this is the largest component of the research analysis, is to say this impacts on my project because, now say for example you might have found out that 90% of people use Firefox and 10% use Internet Explorer. That's important because it means that you need to make sure that your website works in Firefox. It also means that you have to make sure that it works in Internet Explorer, but that can be less of a priority. This impacts, those statistics aren't true by the way. This impacts my project because, and this means that in my project I need to make sure that I do this. So this is essentially what the impact is, and this part here is your next step. So that's really important because you're showing analysis of your results and showing a link between your results and what you're actually going to do in your project.